Hello, welcome to our live Google Hangout on the Living Income Guaranteed. Today is Friday. As we mentioned, we were going to have this session today because our guest actually has to work on Sundays, and we will be discussing about hidden charges exposed, which, as we place in the description of this event, it's those charges that we apparently know what they're all about in terms of money, but we will be going a little bit further to start expanding our awareness in terms of how we actually participate in the economy. So to talk through that, we have Joe Kou from California in the US. Hi, Joe.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us and for making space for this hangout as well. So without further ado, let's start. Before I continue, remember that there's questions and comments that you can place if you're watching live. If not, you can place a comment and we will give it to Joe as well. So let's start, Joe. What do we mean by hidden charge exposed?
Okay, so I'm sure most of us have looked at a utility bill or a phone bill or gone to the bank and looked at the charges that are presented to us, and every now and then we'll say like, hey, what's this? What's this fee for talking to a live person? Or what's this fee for using one of the company pens? We understand that concept, right, of things being charged to us monetarily for services that we may not have agreed to had we known ahead of time. But one thing that seems to elude most people, and certainly myself before I started looking more deeper into this, is what I would call the hidden charge. Now, this hidden charge is not a monetary value. This hidden charge has everything to do with who we are, what we become, what we do, and the consequences associated to that as a result of us having to survive in the current system. For example, just a very basic thing that most people can relate to is going to work, doing your job. But what's really involved in that? In most jobs, your focus really is not about service. It's not about doing something you care about and doing the best you can to give to another person what's actually best. If a person comes in and asks you for the best price and you happen to know your competitor has a better price, are you going to tell them that? No, you're not. That's a hidden charge. And that charge is not, again, something that's billed to you on a bill, but it's something that you've become. You've become an accessory to the system, and you're essentially passing these hidden charges onto everybody else so that you can get your paycheck. You can get your money and use that money to do what? You buy your groceries, you pay your rent. But then let's look again. When you go out and you're spending your money, your paycheck, and you go to a grocery store, and you're going there looking for the best value, well, are they going to tell you what the best value is? No, because they're going to do the exact same thing. Everybody's trapping each other into the same kinds of hidden charges. And what is this hidden charge? If I can encapsulate it in one thing, it is the idea, the worldview, a very poisonous one at that, that we have to prioritize our world system, our economic system in terms of making money at profit versus providing quality. And the details of that and how that actually plays out we'll go into a bit further in today's discussion.
Yes, I like the fact that you call this consumer fantasy. Can you expand a little bit on this?
Consumer fantasy. Yeah, one of the things that I relate to this hidden charge is the cost to perception. And I call it that because it seems to have created this false reality of consumer fantasy where we have this idea that because I paid a monetary price for something, that everything that went into the creation of that, whether it's a service or a product, is covered. That is a very, very, very limiting and narrow and dangerous worldview to have. Because yes, the price is obviously relevant. The price has to do with the economic models that go on. But we don't consider all of the resources, all of the human labor, all of the consequences that stick around and are still here in this world to be dealt with, and no amount of monetary value is going to address those things. Because, you know, have a look, our products aren't made by money itself. I can't, you know, take $20 and put it into a dark room and tell it, okay, now make me this product, and I'll come back in 5 hours and pick that up. No, the money's not going to do anything. That the product is made through resources. The product is made through human effort, human labor. Oftentimes, that cost is externalized. Most of us are familiar with cheap labor in third world countries, exploiting other nations for their resources, having a military presence to control all of those resources, so that a few people can benefit from being able to generate all these products and nice things and keep the economy going. But when we go and pay for something, is any of that factored into our costs at the price level? No. In fact, most of that is not even addressed at all. And that leads to our incredible fantasy world of consumer products. If you walk into a shopping center or walk into a shopping mall and you look at all of the products there, I mean, where did it all come from? You know, how many hands, how many lives were affected just in getting that product to the store, just transporting things from one point to another? There's immense things that have to happen. And the fact that we go in there and pay $20, $30 and think that everything's settled is insane.
Exactly. It's like when the quantity of money becomes a way to conceal, let's call it the actual dirty job, because we're not there, for example, in terms of meat, we're not there going and slaughtering the animal and having to do the cleanup and the transportation and the slicing. Everything we get is just this nice and clinic perspective of, oh, you go there, you pay, and that's your right as a consumer. You pay for it, then you own it, and that's it, you know. And so I like this concept of consumer fantasy as precisely what we engage in every single time that we just give the money, get the product, and we believe that that's it, when it's really not. So let's continue exploring this point and what you call the benefit package. What is this about, this end user agreement?
Okay, so this is an analogy that I like, because I'm sure most of us have downloaded software or you know, had to update an app or something, and usually what will come up is a screen, and it has this really, really long scroll of legal text, and at the very bottom it'll say, here if you agree to this end user agreement. Sign here if you agree to these terms and conditions. And what do most of us do? Let's be honest. Oh, I don't read that. I don't go through all of that word by word. I don't check my Black's Law dictionary for all the terms. No, I need to use the thing. I'm busy. So I'm going to sign it and agree to the terms and conditions. I have no idea what I just signed, but man, I'm busy. I got to get this thing working. That is the benefit package. You've been given a package towards your benefit. It is assumed that you're going to take responsibility for knowing what you're signing off on in exchange for getting this benefit. Okay? But most of us don't read it, don't understand it. And yes, it's worded in such a way so that we resist reading it and we don't want to care, and we're trained to just accept, accept, accept. A great example of this is credit cards. Okay, how many stories have we heard? But not so much recently, maybe, but back in the credit boom, how many people were leveraging credit cards like crazy? Oh, I've got too much on this card, but I can sign this thing and get more credit and charge it on my next card. That is a benefit package. You were offered a benefit. It is assumed that you're going to take responsibility and understand everything. The fact that they didn't disclose everything, didn't hold your hand, didn't walk you through the contract, didn't make sure you know every single word in their terms, that legally that's not on them. And that's the system that we have. And it's not about blaming anybody, but we do have a great responsibility for understanding our position when we're accepting something. And I would say the biggest benefit package that we continually sign and don't question is the benefit of our current world system, our current way of life, is one giant benefit package. For example, the example of being able to walk over to my faucet and turn on the knobs and water comes out. That's a benefit. I have electricity. That's a huge benefit. I have a police force and military and health systems. I won't say health care. That's a separate topic. You know, I have all of that, and that's all assumed to be a benefit for me. And the cost to that is every time I don't question my end user agreement to all of this. So that is the benefit package. We all have it. We've all accepted it. We've all, in our own way, signed the dotted line each and every single day that we wake up, and we expect these services to still be here. But until we really understand what all of that costs, and by extension what our responsibility is to keeping all of this maintained, all of that is missing and not part of our dialogue, not part of our mental awareness, not part of our daily calculations, and I say it needs to be.
Absolutely, and also because in this we lose perception of who we are within the system. We usually say, well, you know, I just work for money, get my stuff. I don't have anything to do with what corporations do or what the money system is made of and so forth. And in that, we comfortably also abdicate our responsibility. As you're mentioning, it's like, okay, I just sign the deal with the devil, so to speak, and don't really get to know the details, you know. And in that, we always miss out, okay, how is this actually made, for example? How is this produced? What are the long-term effects of this product that is being produced? And who am I within this end user agreement, as you're mentioning? And I would also look at this sneaky context of benefit. You know, oh, that sounds good. That's a benefit, but we don't get to know the downsides of it, which is something that it's usually undisclosed, and it's part and a consequence of the trap that we've created in a system wherein we don't really care about these hidden charges. We just want to charge people and charge each other to get the profit done. So in that loss of awareness, we do carry the consequences, and it's, as you're mentioning, it's a collective responsibility for sure. So what can you tell us about the hidden fees not paid in money, about work and, you know, that usual parity of, oh, well, I work for money, as I was mentioning.
Right, the hidden fees not paid in money. I mean, this is a very deeply embedded thing. It's become part of every single transaction that we participate in. It's become so deeply embedded and not questioned that it's kind of worked its way into our very way of thinking and our very way of seeing everything in our world. We don't intrinsically see the real cost. We've been so trained to see only a price, and how much X amount of money that do I need in order to obtain X amount of good or value. And that equation is relevant in terms of, yeah, economic, financial, monetary policy, but that's not the only thing that runs this world. There's a huge amount of things that is not accounted for, and by extension, there's a huge amount of things that we're actually losing out on, things that we're actually being charged, just not in the form of money. And again, because we haven't understood our end user agreement, we don't even think to consider the cost that is rendered to us. The way that we are living now, we think is a benefit, when in fact, let's go back to the example of a job. For most of us, we're in a system now where you are trained to provide service for profit. Few of us have the luxury of doing what we actually love and being able to live off of it. in most cases that I've heard where people are doing that, they're not living that well. Yeah, they're doing what they love, but they're not making a whole lot of money doing it. How you make money is using the system. And in this system, remember, this is the benefit package. This is what you do in exchange for the benefit package, people. Here's the fine print. Okay? Look at any job in the system, right? You are maximizing profit in dollar amounts, in dollar value, but how are you doing that? You're passing on all kinds of costs to other people, not just consumers, but you're selling products that can only exist if there's an inequality in the world where people can be taken advantage of for their labor, for their time. These products can only come into existence currently by exploiting resources and making sure that enough people are kept in a certain poverty range so that they can continually be exploited as a resource in order to generate this profit. And we all do that. To get into the practical living example of one person's job, let's take, for example, somebody that works in a retail store. You might not think you're doing much. I'm just a retail clerk. I'm not affecting the world system. But what about every single transaction that you make? What about all the times that you clock in for this company that you're working for? What about all of the service that you provide that is not actually for the good of the other person? It's just the best they can get with the money that they're paying. And that money that they're paying doesn't go to you, doesn't benefit you, it benefits the company. And that's not a moral judgment. I'm not here to say the companies are bad or evil. But we've got to understand this is part of our end user agreement. We have signed on for the benefit of this current system, and in exchange, we have to sell each other inferior goods. We have to provide each other inferior quality dressed up as a benefit, when in fact, let's be honest, in any person's job, you can already see how much more effective things could be, how much better your service quality could be if the focus was on actually giving good quality service, good quality product. But the problem is, that's not very profitable. Fine print, we need to keep profit going. That is the end user.
That's also what I was looking as you were explaining. You know that whatever you're selling, maybe it's not the best quality, maybe it's not even something absolutely necessary to the end user, but we comply to it because, you know, I have to make money. So in this series of justifications and, well, you know, there's nothing else to do, and it is really so, you know. At the moment we have enclosed ourselves into, as you were mentioning, a system wherein there's only profit that matters, and where we at the same time, once again, serves as a way to abdicate responsibility of, well, I just work for them, you know, I'm not doing anything else. And in that, we kind of place in the back of our heads that there could be another way of living. There could be another kind of jobs that we could actually create if we kind of started creating this awareness of these kind of charges and values and what we and the money that we pay for things. So let's look at this within the cost of perception. And well, we went through that. Would you like to add anything to this? We were talking about also the fracking example, which I would like you to bring as well.
Definitely. Well, very quickly to finish up the point of the cost to perception, I think the solution to that is what I would call restoration of disbelief. Most people, when you go to a movie or you go and enjoy a fantasy novel, what do? You suspend disbelief, meaning for a moment you go with whatever the fantasy setting is, whether it's science fiction or there's some kind of drama unfolding in a movie. You go with that for a moment. You know it's not real, but you go with it because you get a benefit. You get the benefit of the experience, right? So you suspend your disbelief and you go for the ride. That's when it comes to entertainment and it's just affecting you, okay, you know, you can probably do that. But when it comes to things that affect all of us, when it comes to, again, these kind of end user awareness things, we have got to start restoring our disbelief. We've got to stop believing that we can finance our way through this debt-ridden world that we've created. We've got to stop the fantasy belief that we can just print more money and make more money without investigating truly how this money exists, what money is, what the cost is to this presumed benefit that we have, that we can go and work and get money and pay for survival. That in itself has been an experience, has been a ride. It is not working. I am not satisfied as an end user, but it's not just me signing on to it. So I highly recommend people, again, something that we've touched upon in various other Hangouts with various other guests, education, bringing forth your awareness, but pushing the awareness past the commonly accepted mainstream awareness of what they teach you on TV and schools. You've got to develop a sense of, you know what, I know what is told and what I'm supposed to think, but what do I really see? What is, and that's the restoration of disbelief, where you go into that uncomfortable zone sometimes where you've got to say, you know what, I was sold this bad bill of goods, but this is part of the benefit package. But now, as an end user, I'm aware. I'm starting to read the fine print. I'm starting to understand what I signed on to. And yeah, it's unfortunate, and the beginning phases can be painful and scary, but the more you understand, the more you can actually start addressing the issue, start taking control, and start educating yourself and others.
It also has to do a lot with finding out the uncomfortable truth, because we do like to remain in what we were looking at as a consumer fantasy, but if we really want to get to understand how everything operates, you will find stuff that will not be pleasant, that will maybe make you angry initially, but these are necessary steps also to reveal to ourselves the nature of what we had agreed to without
Yes.
our full awareness embedded into it. So this is what I see so valuable of explaining all of this, the hidden cost of our relationships that, as you mentioned, are being mostly parasitical. Can you explain a little bit more on this?
Sure. We can use the example of fracking. Most of us understand fracking. Okay. Um, this is a generalization, but what tends to happen is people are offered a contract. Okay, they're offered the ability to utilize their property and their land and the resources underneath their house, for example, for fracking purposes. A big corporation will come in and basically give them this huge lump sum of money and say, hey, we're gonna do fracking, but in exchange, we're gonna give you this benefit. And this benefit, there's this huge end user agreement, this huge contract that you sign, blah, 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 but we're going to give you money. Do you want to take that money? Now, to an average person, we're going to say, well, if I don't sign this contract, I will not get this money. So to me, it seems the logical thing to do would be to take the money. Because if I don't, I'm going to be net negative, right? I'm going to be losing out on money that I could have gotten for just signing away on things. And what happens after that is what was never considered in that moment of, okay, now you've got fracking going on, and it's doing what? It's poisoning the water. It's creating environmental damage that at this point we're not able to repair because of the current system in place. It's putting your property actually in danger because of all of the emissions that have a detrimental effect to your health and the health of your family. We've all seen the videos of people turning on their water faucets and being able to light the water on fire. Okay, that's not propaganda, that's actually happening. And generally, there is a blanket covering all of this from becoming, more criticized in the open media. Because why? The contract. The contract stipulates that in order to get your money, you have to sign off on a non-disclosure. You cannot talk about this. You cannot talk about what was happening. You cannot talk about all of the costs to your health and the consequences to yourself and your neighbors and future generations that might want to use that land. Okay, all of it is on you because you accepted the contract, and you in turn can't even sue the company because, again, in the contract you've signed that waiver. Okay, you no longer have standing. So this is that relationship again of end user. Okay, everything that we participate in might not have a paper contract like the example of fracking, but it does have a moment of acceptance, a moment where you have to say, you have to agree to participate. And that is in everything that we do, in every moment of our lives, in every thought that we've ever had. We've got that moment of saying, do I accept? Do I agree to this? Do I give my permission for this to happen under my name, under my awareness, under my watch, so to speak? And it's critical, and like I said, it's embedded in everything. It's not just about signing contracts. It's about the way that we've been trained to see the world and see relationships. And I think it's a worthy subject of deep investigation and correction for all of us.
Absolutely. And also another aspect that comes to mind is the financial market and stock trade. What can you tell us about this and how, the same point is embedded in it?
That is a whole interesting beast, the concept of trading stocks and the stock market itself. I could probably do a series on this. For full disclosure, I'm not a financial professional. Okay, I don't work on Wall Street. I don't do investing. But one doesn't have to in order to see past the illusion of what's going on. Okay, what are they actually selling? They're selling promises of future benefit of a company's performance. That's what you're buying. That's what you're gambling on. You're not gambling on anything real because what happens? Because when you look at the what's actually backing the stock, it's a promise that this company has made profit. How does the company make profit? Do they profit by giving people what they actually need and providing real, lasting, good service? Because if they are, they're a terrible company to buy stock in, because they're not going to be generating money. Good service and good product does not need to be replaced. So it kills repeat buyers, it kills retail, it kills all of that, and that's part of the benefit package. For well, one thing to look at would be the retirement benefits that the United States is liable for paying. We actually don't have enough in the United States to cover everything that we promised. So what do we have to do? We're going to have to find some way of generating the money to pay for all of that. Because the whole system is built around generating money to pay for things instead of just doing things the right way the first time. So what are we going to do? We're going to have to find ways to enter other countries, get their resources, get our hands on control of energy so that we can maximize our potential to create jobs and create infrastructure and keep cars on the road and do all of these things just to keep people able to utilize their benefit of having a job to go to, being able to sell inferior goods, and keeping people in this train of nonstop consumerism, because that's what it costs to keep this system going. And everything's related to that, whether it's the stock market or pension funds, anything to do with our commercial system. It's the same game, and it's embedded in everything.
Yes, exactly. We are not realizing that we are gambling on life, in fact. And as you're mentioning, just keeping the status quo, like everything is fine, just let's make more jobs and let's keep the illusion going at the expense of real life, real resources, real people's labor that is going further and further down the spiral in terms of the labor conditions, the wages. There's no consideration of long-term effects also, if we go a little back into the fracking example, we believe, well, I signed this contract for 20 years. They're going to be in the backyard of my house for 20 years. But, I mean, pollution doesn't go in 20 years. It's not like you signed the contract for that type of cleanup or something like that. So we do lose all sense of consequences at the same time when we only reduce our vision to this monetary value. So to go further into this point, what are the charges held against us?
Okay, so this might be a little bit more difficult to grasp because it took me a long time. So I'm going to try my best to use analogy and explain this. The way I've come to see the current system is that it can be seen as one giant machine. And this machine encompasses governments, it encompasses huge mega transnational corporations, it encompasses all of our institutions, which I would include our financial institutions, basically everything that keeps the modern world functioning. That's what I'm calling the world system. Okay? Now this world system I tend to see as one giant machine, and this machine requires what? It requires energy. When the machine doesn't have energy, it's not broken, it's not bad, it's not dead, it just can't do what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to keep things working. It's supposed to keep generating, moving like a motor. And like any motors, like any machines, it needs power source. It needs something to keep it going because it itself is not self-sustaining. It needs energy from somewhere else to do what it's designed and engineered to do. So when we look at the world system machine, it needs extensive amounts of energy. And this is because most of the beneficiaries, you and me, everybody, want the benefits that the machine can give us, but we are not looking at the cost. We are not looking at where this machine is getting its energy from. And it's not always in the form of money, like I said. And this is the greatest hidden charge. And it's so well hidden because we don't really put a monetary value on it because we're dealing with the consequences to human life, the consequences to the kinds of relationships we have with ourselves and our neighbors and with even our partners. We become so much part of this system as the end user. We don't realize that, wait a minute, am I the beneficiary or am I the energy source? And that is a massive thing to start to unravel because it's really important here to not go into blaming the system or looking at the world system as, this freaking thing is sucking away all of our life and it's evil and we've got to destroy it. No, because guess what? It's the only life support system that we have. And we can't just unplug it because now we're realizing there was a cost to this benefit. Because we all signed on to it. Okay. Yes, to a great effect, many of us are consequentially tied to it, and we don't have the means to challenge it sufficiently. But that's only going to come with awareness, with education, with understanding all of the moments where we're giving it the energy, when we're going to work, when we're not questioning the value of our product, when we're not questioning the kinds of relationships we're creating with the world, with the environment as the cost of doing business, as the cost of keeping the machine running. Again, I'll just wrap this point up really quickly here. Again, this machine is our only life support system right now. It's not the best. It is consequential. It is not good for us long term, and it shouldn't be. Okay, it's a great training wheel, and I see this as a stepping stone for all of us, for humanity to, yes, for a moment we have all this great infrastructure. It's coming at a huge cost, but we can start converting this infrastructure into self-sustaining methods. We can start taking responsibility. We can start weaning ourselves off of dependency on foreign powers, foreign oil, foreign resources. So we can stop sending representatives to a building in Washington and telling them to do everything for us, because we can start doing it for ourselves.
Absolutely. This cost of living has to be also a process of responsibility, as we've mentioned also before. That basic decision to become aware of this entails, as you were mentioning, education, investigation. I, for example, like documentaries to then get a little bit closer into, for example, the manufacturing of something, how a certain process of extraction affects people's lives. And so because we cannot be, for example, in Africa where some mineral that is used for our gadgets, we don't get to see it firsthand, we can use these sources now in the era of information to become more aware, and within this start realizing that the relationships that we create, as you were mentioning, have to be redefined into a symbiotic relationship, meaning working together, being able to create sustainable means of creating life in essence, and not having to define this cost with this massive detriment to our life, to our system. And also what you were mentioning, we don't get to understand that how we feel, how we experience ourselves, and how we relate to one another is entirely influenced by this cost that is hidden as well, and that we don't get to kind of link the dots, like this is because of money as well. This is how we've created the system. I am part of it. How come we have allowed ourselves to get to this place? So this is certainly like this starting point of awareness that we are definitely here to share for everyone, and to kind of inspire each other to also start linking the dots, so to speak. Very fascinating. And Joe, any last words to wrap up this hangout?
Yes. Don't panic. In in investigating these things, often for myself, it gets dark, it gets depressing, it gets to be like it's so completely overwhelming. And that is par for the course. It's going to happen. We've been the beneficiaries of things, and we've been spoiled rotten, and we haven't developed a kind of awareness that comes with maturity and responsibility. And oftentimes that comes with pain, that comes with adjusting, that comes with having to question ourselves and our relationships, and we end up having to step into that uncomfortable zone of really asking, okay, is this really benefiting myself? Is this really benefiting the kind of relationships I have in my world right now? Is this benefiting the future generations? And if the answer is no, don't panic. You're not alone. We're all the end user here. So continue to educate and understand that you are not the only one facing the consequence. We're all here, and we're only going to be able to get through this together. So expand yourself, reach out. There are many researchers, and definitely check out this channel and the material that we bring forward, because really we are all in it together. So don't panic.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that, and it's so vital and important, because it is so, when you start going down the rabbit hole of discovering how things really work, it does get dark, it does get dirty, it does get a bit depressing. We've been there, so that's why we're doing this, exactly, because we know that there is a way out. And as we've also shared with all the sustainability hangouts, there are ways. We just have to become aware of that, start speaking with each other, making this a topic of conversation with your friends, family. Let's start expanding that awareness so that we start planting these seeds that can become the new way in which we decide to live. So that is an individual decision, yes, and it will get a little bit dark at times, as we've said, but yeah, that's why we're here as well, to also focus all the time on solutions and what can be done. There's great potential, even with this consequential outflow we're facing at the moment. We have to start building the future. Thanks a lot, Joe, for your time, for being here. It was great having you again on the Hangout.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, the viewer, for watching, and we'll see you next Sunday, as usual, in our next Living Income Guaranteed Google Hangout. Thanks for watching. Bye, Joe.
Bye-bye.